numerous police checkpoints and stopover, several clearance documents required by the suppliers to move the products to the market, among others. The Consumer Voice of Kenya have learned with regret the continued supply of substandard sanitizers and face masks into the local markets. And this is actually exposing majority of Kenyan consumers to the risk of contracting coronavirus. Many unscrupulous traders are actually taking advantage of the situation to maim innocent consumers by selling to them low-quality face masks that would not serve any purpose in preventing the virus spread. Another very key issue that really needs to be looked at is the police harassment. We, as the Consumer Voice of Kenya, also have noted with regret the continued police harassment to Kenyans who are not wearing face masks. It is not by default that they do not have this, but it's purely the high cost of living. Some of them could not afford this, and this is an area where the government really needs to come in handy and ensure that the common mwananchi, those who are not able, who are struggling to put food on the table, actually get to be given this face mask free of charge. While we are cognizant of the fact that it's against the law for one to appear in public without wearing face mask, however, there should be a proper way to handle those found on the wrong side of the law. The officers need to devise a humane way of handling citizens who in one way or another may not be having the face mask. We do not need to lump them up with other possible candidates of COVID-19 infections. We need separate quarantine centers for such victims. On the issue of consumer education, we have observed that consumers in the rural areas still lack this information regarding the COVID-19 pandemic, despite the various measures shared by the Ministry of Health. More efforts needed by the Ministry of Agriculture in prioritizing the analysis on market trends, detailing prevailing market prices of goods and services for the benefit of those particular segment of consumers. Kenyans should be properly sensitized on disposal of face masks and, where possible, properly shown how to handle used masks without subjecting them to the risk of contamination. We, as Consumer Voice of Kenya, we are calling for additional measures by the government in fighting the COVID-19 pandemic in Kenya. The Consumer Voice of Kenya wishes to call for the following actions to cushion consumers from the socioeconomic impacts of coronavirus. 1. The Competition Authority of Kenya and the Kenya Consumer Protection Advisory Committee, that is KECOPAC, urgently institute measures to ensure that traders do not take advantage of coronavirus pandemic to rake in profits by hiking and fixing prices of personal health products, including sanitizers, soaps, wipers, masks, among others. A spot check by Consumer Voice of Kenya reveals that prices of some of these products and services have been hiked across the country. We are calling upon the Anti-Counterfeit Agency, that is the ACA, the Kenya Bureau of Standards, enforcement officers, to step up market surveillance to guard consumers from counterfeits of personal hygiene products as the demand rises countrywide. The Consumer Voice of Kenya also urges consumers to be extra vigilant and to report any suspected counterfeit to the relevant authorities. We are also calling upon the Communication Authority of Kenya, together with the Ministry of Health and KECOPAC, to put in measures to ensure that only factual information is channeled to consumers. Consumer Voice of Kenya is concerned that some of the information getting to consumers, especially through the digital platform, may not be accurate and is ill-intended. The Competition Authority of Kenya, KECOPAC, and the Ministry of Trade and Interior should actually ensure that dubious traders do not unjustifiably and unreasonably hike the prices of basic goods and services such as food items and transport. We realize that this is already happening across the country and need to be stopped. We call upon the government and we advise that the agencies in charge of water and sanitation services across the country, such as Nairobi Water and Sewerage Company, ensure that there is uninterrupted flow of water, particularly to the vulnerable, such as those consumers in the slums, to guard against the spread of the virus. The water management agency should actually halt any disconnection during this period. That the roles and contribution of all key agencies and ministries, including the Ministry of Agriculture, National Treasury, Kenya Revenue Authority, the National Hospital Insurance Fund, that's NHIF, the National Social Security Fund, county governments, and others be clearly spelled and coordinated effectively. This pandemic cannot be left to the Ministry of Health alone. So far, we are seeing little, if any, support from the other key agencies. We are actually calling that the Keko Park sit in the multi-agency team that has been set up to represent consumers' interests and concern while combating the spread of COVID-19. That the leadership of Health Workers Union across the country urge their members who are currently on strike to go slow for whatever reasons, to fully resume work, to help save our people. In the same breath, we also urge the government to ensure that health workers and their families are accorded maximum protection as they help the victims of COVID-19. That the Ministry of Health provide precautions about use of alcohol-based sanitizers, such as the allergic reaction, and promote water and soap hand wash as the best option. We have witnessed the use of surgical spirits, which is corrosive, as a sanitizer. And in such practices are not arrested, if such practices are not arrested fast enough, then we could create further health challenges in this country. That the government, through the Ministry of Interior and National Coordination, step up enforcement of the measures and directives to contain the spread of COVID-19, to ensure full compliance across all sectors. We call upon the government to ensure accountability and transparency in handling resources. I would want to repeat this. We call upon the government to enhance accountability and transparency in handling resources contributed by well-wishers in the fight against COVID-19 pandemic. The Ministry of Health should actually consider involvement of consumer organizations to promote consumer education in Kenya. The ministry should further allocate a budget to that effect to enable effective coordination of the process. As consumer organizations, we will support measures to curtail the spread of COVID-19 in Kenya, as long as there is a detailed consumer impact assessment on each of the measures and mitigation measures put in place. Finally, Consumer Voice of Kenya appreciate the role played by various stakeholders in realizing the current milestones in the fight against COVID-19. We promise to collaborate and cooperate where necessary to enhance the efficiency and effectiveness of the measures put in place by the government. Over and above, we are open to explore on areas of mutual interest aimed at promoting welfare of consumers during this pandemic. Thank you very much. That is our statement as read by Daniel Asher of CATS. And this has been signed by